Well, hello and welcome to the wrap. This is a show rounding up all things Zwift from the last week. We're talking racing, we're talking events, tech, and fashion. We're live on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. I'm Nathan Guerra. Anna Russell sat next to me, and this is episode number 77 on Thursday. That's not December 4th. It's actually January 4th. Definitely January 4th, and it is a new year, 2024. First podcast of 2024. If you didn't know, this is also a podcast. You can download the audio version anywhere that you do find your podcasts. Go ahead and search The Wrap and Zwift. You should be able to find it real quickly that way. And it's also available over at zwiftcommunitylive.com/podcast. Today on The Wrap, we're going to be talking about the WTRL ZRL round number 3 route recon with Cy Bradley. The schedule has just been released. We'll also be taking a look at the U.S. Nationals and previewing U.S. Nationals for this weekend. National Championships in Esports on Zwift. Very interesting. Going to have Masters categories as well as Elite, men, women, and a collegiate contingent of racers. The jersey pick of the week is the Alp du Knit Ice Kit, which is actually a pretty cool kit. It is an jersey unlock from some of the new levels. And outside of that, I think there's a couple little spicy things that are happening over on Zwift Insider. Maybe we'll bring some of that in if we've got time. But usually the WTRL ZRL takes up plenty of our time. So real quickly, let's talk about what we've been up to, though, as we usually do for the last week in relation to the Zwifting and working out, etc. Anna, I'm going to throw it over to you for that first. And by the way, nice headband.
Thank you. Yes. So thank you for sending this to me. The Verge kit. I'm rocking the headband. And also have been wearing the kit a lot on all my indoor sessions. I think actually we're going to have Eric Schlange on the show in the next few weeks to come on, and we're going to talk indoor specific kind of clothing because I've never worn, I've got like a Saris one piece, but I just don't really like wear that day to day because it's like a one piece. So it's a bit like trickier. But it's quite cool. Yeah. Really, really like sheer mesh shorts. So it's been great. So thanks for sending that through.
It's
and I like the headband.
Definitely an indoor kit. It's definitely fully indoor. Like that's
because I got it and I was like, oh, I've got a gravel ride tomorrow. I'll wear it tomorrow. And I was like, whoo. Maybe not.
Yep. It is an indoor kit, but it keeps you nice and cool. It does its job. That's for sure. Yeah. That's for sure. We'll talk plenty about that next week. So, besides the indoor kit, what's going on?
Yeah, a lot. So, well, not a lot, but like because it's been 2 weeks of holiday, I've used these 2 weeks to like just really get some solid training in because I've got another adult in the house, being my husband. I can come off the bike or a run or a swim and be a bit tired and not be like, oh, I'm the only parent here to 3 kids running around like crazy. This is tricky. So it's actually been really useful, like just doing this over the holiday. So yeah, it's I feel really fit, which is awesome. I actually did one of the Flamme Rouge racing races, and it was the Big Ring, one of the new courses that I really quite enjoyed, actually. So you went kind of through the desert and then you did 4 sprints, which were all fastest time segment, those 4 sprints along the new road. And that was like super fun. Like I got a 15-second PR of like 604 watts or something. It's like 11.2 watts a kg. So I was like, oh, this is awesome. And then I knew coming out, it was like the coming out through the jungle, you know, that kind of long, draggy climb. And I just was like, I've got this theory now that unless you dictate the tactics and you do something, you're just going to get taken control of by someone else's tactics that you might not like. And so my tactic was like, I'm just going to like ride up this as hard as I possibly can and just break the pack and see who's with me at the end. And so there were only like maybe 6 of us out of 52 who made it after I like pulled the pace all the way to the top. Yeah, which was awesome. So then it's just 6 of you, and we had like a 30-second gap on the group behind. And I was kind of racking them up, like, come on, come on, come on, let's work, let's keep this time gap. And yeah, then we sprinted out for the finish. So it was a ton of
how
fun.
did that go on the descent? Because that's a pretty steep descent out of the jungle, isn't it?
Yeah, so but then I went back to the groups behind, and then there was another group of like 4, then a group of 5, then a
Ah,
group of
okay.
3. So it was like
Yeah.
totally fractured. So the
Ah,
whole race was
gotcha.
like split. And then also because of the way it is, it's mixed gender racing. And so there are a couple of guys in there who I was literally like
Oh,
typing, being
nice.
like,
Okay.
yeah, I was like, hey, I've pulled this whole climb. Now it's up to you, you guys.
Come
Like,
on now.
to come on, get your raw watts in there because I can't pull at like 300 watts for too long. So yeah, we stayed away and I was super excited. It was a really cool one. Then yesterday, I actually spent like 2.5 hours down in my pain cave. I did a hour and a half VO2 30-15s. So like it ended up being 40 30-15s, which was quite a lot. And then
That is a
got off
lot.
and did 9 kilometers at 4-minute K pace.
So wait, you were doing
So
30-15s, you said.
yeah. Yeah, into 4 sets of 10. So there's 4 minutes rest between each set of 10, but it was 10, 30, 15s, 4 minutes, 10, 30, 15s, 4 minutes, 10,
30 on,
4, 10.
15 off, 30 on, 15
Yeah.
off. And what's the
Yeah.
30? Like 5
So
or 6?
it was 5. My FTP is 240 and it was 285.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. I was
So
like,
yeah, but
because okay,
not
like there's a
sprinting,
lot
not
of
sprinting.
30-15. So I thought you were doing lactate tolerance reps at that kind of
No, VO2,
repeatability.
VO2.
And I was like, what? Oh my gosh.
Oh, that
Holy
good.
cow. So
But then
so
I was
good.
stoked. I wanted to get off and be able to run really fast on tired legs. So yeah, I feel really good. Like I feel stoked. I feel great leading into like next week will be a bit more low key because I'm back to work and kids are still home from holidays. But yeah, I feel good. And I know you've had not so much of a good week.
Yeah, it's so my son had a pretty like he had just been really sick last week, and then I was like nobody was getting it. Well, it was just incubation. I actually the last time I rode my bike was New Year's Eve, actually December 31st. I had to try and remember the last time I rode my bike because I was like, when did I ride? So I got sick and I was like, oh, so Monday I was like not the best, but I was like still working and whatever. And then come Tuesday, like I just was absent from the world from Tuesday until late Wednesday night. And then I was like, okay, I'm coming around today a little bit, but still like I tried pushing it in some work and I went to my daughter's wrestling meet, but like still it was like I need to. So I just woke back up actually because and now like that I've got moving, I got a little bit of tea in me. I'm like, okay, a little bit better, but like there's definitely still something going on. But I'm glad it's not happening in the middle of U.S. Nationals because that's a big production, and I'm glad I'm able to turn the corner as we get into it this weekend because there's a lot going on in the background to make that as awesome as it possibly can be for everybody participating, which I'm super excited about. But yeah, that's what's been going on with me is just being sick and making sure that Gabby doesn't catch too much of it. She's doing pretty good. It seems like she's just on the edge of it, like creeping in, and we're like, I kind of force her to rest, and I think I just keep on pushing through, and then like end up extra sick. But anyways, so that's what's been going on. So let's just jump right into it. I think we got Sai actually on, and let's just get right into the ZRL round number 3, 2023-24 season. Sai from the virtual Velo Network is here with us. Sai, good to see you. How you doing this morning? Early morning for you.
Yes, yeah, good morning. Good to see you both. Happy New Year to you both as well.
Happy New Year, Sai.
Yeah, you too.
Totally.
Yeah. No, it's early, 5 a.m., 5:30 a.m. So the caffeine is on and we're ready to go. So no problem there.
Awesome.
Well, you're having the caffeine, I'm having my beer, like I said to you on the messages. This is non-alcoholic, by the way, before I get way too into the...
Before you get all the comments? Oh, boy.
Yeah, exactly right. Non-alcoholic. Sorry, before we get into it, I do want to shout out, someone commented on the show last week that they wanted to thank us for talking about alcohol and how it's okay not to drink over the festive period if you don't want to, and non-alcoholic drinks are still fun to have. So thanks for putting that there. And yeah, I'm embracing my non-alcoholic beer.
I've had a fear of drinking any beer, whether it be non-alcoholic or alcoholic, after, I think, alcoholic, should I say. I sound like I've had one already. Based on what Nathan said about 2 months ago, that the chemical effects, I can't remember exactly what it lowers now, but
yeah, the hops is shown.
Since that comment.
If you do some research a little bit, now I don't know if this is just, I did dive enough, because I like a non-alcoholic beer, or even just a beer, like enough that I went like pretty deep into it. And I mean, alcohol is pretty obviously at this point shown that like no benefit and detrimental to training. But the non-alcoholic, there's a whole, and Athletic Brewing's gonna hate me for this one, but like, and all the other competitors in that space. But there's been some studies out there that show, for men, I would say, that like estrogen levels might go up from the hops, and that's not what you want if you're competing at a really, really high level. Like, and so now don't like, I am not the person writing these papers. I'm not the person that knows a whole lot about them. It was just like, it's an extra calorie. It is a food for me, and I can replace those calories another way, and I don't need it that much. It's actually an extra cost for me, and I can have a smoothie, or I can have you know what I mean? Like, I could easily replace that pleasure of a food with something else without being like totally like, oh, I can't have this. But I had gotten into a habit of like, after every ride, or like, I mean, I was having an NA beer like pretty often. And so I was just like, well, I'm just going to cut it and see. And I feel better. Like, my gut also feels better. I think the hops, along with, however, maybe some of the wheat that is in there or something was maybe being a little disruptive to my tummy too. So in general, it's been good for me. I don't know. Sai, how about you? Have you seen a difference?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't drink a lot anyway, whether it be the alcoholic variety or not. So it had very little impact on my life anyway, which is why I just, I mean, Mrs. Bradley's happy because I get to drive everywhere if we ever go out. So, which isn't that often with kids. So, yeah, she's happy.
So, can I ask, before we get into the recon, what are you training for? Because I see that you're looking pretty fit and you've been doing some pretty hard workouts. Are you training for the ZRL, or are you going to go Zwift Championship? Where are you going this off season?
Yeah, well,
esports.
I won't say what I was focused on, but I actually have had whole December off. November had a really good month and I was going really well. The numbers were great. I was racing, getting some good results. And then, December, I just got ill. So I literally had like 4.5 weeks of doing very, very little. And then, they've just been back at it now for probably just a week or so at that. So, I can't. The guys of my ZRL team keep saying, we got to get you back because we're still chasing this elusive helmet at some point, just before Holly Bergin gives me any grief for that again. But I think it's going to have to be Zwift Games. I think that's going to have to be the next target now, is just try and get back fit for the Zwift Games. So thankfully I didn't put on too much timber weight over the festive break with not training and eating reasonably well, I would say. But it's just, so I say I'm put on weight, but I've got an FTP test today, I think. So Alex has put a ramp test in there. So I will know later today how things are looking, how bad things are looking. So not a great day to look forward to.
So real quickly, before we jump in to actually the ZRL upcoming, two things I want to ask about. The last two rounds, like, a feeling on that, as well as like, I get the sense that you're like, it's been a lot already. We started in September, October, and we're in January. We've had a season, it feels like. And now it's like, it sounds like you're in a reset, refresh, and aim at the Zwift Games. maybe that's one question with two parts in a way, is like, how is this indoor space figuring itself out about what work? It almost feels like you have this crew that's really excited about the indoor space and is like, let's go, and like ready to rock. And like, that's a pretty significant crew of people, actually. Like, you're getting 20,000 people racing ZRL. We've got but now there's this whole other band. Like, we had, I think, 36,000 people on Zwift this past week, as a peak Zwift time. So now, like, and that's a whole nother crew. They're like, well, where's the racing? And we're like, dude, we've been racing for like 3 months, man. Like, we're tired. Like, what are you talking about or whatever? Like, I need a little bit of a break in between. So, what's your take on all that? Like, how is this? First of all, do you feel that way? And then also, like, what is the indoor season and how does it function in some ways? Like, I know you got other players in there, FRR, ZRL. Like, there's a lot kind of trying to figure itself out about how this is a sports season.
Absolutely, that in terms of ZRL, I was unsure when we started how I was going to feel about the season, because we're quite deep into this now. We're a couple of years into this, but I think they added a few things that really got my excitement. Not that I wasn't excited about it, but got really high levels of excitement for it again. The fact that we've gone back to just doing the 3 blocks of 6 rather than, because with a couple of the seasons we had this sort of 8 run, and I think, Anna, I've heard you say before, that 8 was just too long for me mentally. At the end of that, I was just ready for a break, and I'm like, wait, just ready ultimately. But I've been thinking a lot, Chris Franker and I talk a lot about, where we are in terms of this esports. But I think I tell you what, I'm really excited about at the moment is the new leagues and the divisions that are coming through. Love ZRL. That's a staple. Don't get me wrong. But personally, even just from a viewing point of view, that Echelon Racing League, I've really loved watching. The racing has been epic, but I can relate that back to the ZRL, because I think when I've looked at the last 2 seasons, we've had these meetings and we've all been, the courses have been great, some interesting stuff in there, but there's nothing been standout. But what's made the events again is the dynamics and the racers, and I'd say that about the last 2 rounds, the racing has been unbelievably good. And I think that the new race dynamics have really contributed to that. Some courses that we've had the last 2 rounds, I think if we'd had them a year ago, they wouldn't have been anywhere near as exciting or as hard as they are now. Just the way you can't sprint in the same way. You can't just sit in a pack anymore and then sprint through, because if you're not near the front or in the right position coming up to a finishing sprint, you're just not getting around riders at that speed. And we saw that when we did the course in Mercury, which finished coming down the bank towards that sprinter.
Suki's playground.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's got exciting again, but I think, you're right. I mean, Flamme Rouge Racing, Echelon Racing League, the racing is, it's different. It's evolving. It's continuing to evolve for us, despite the fact we've been at it 3, 4, even longer than that in some cases. So no, I'm really excited about it, and we're obviously seeing competition from other platforms as well. It's going to be interesting to see how that pushes things. But the Zwift Games, that will be another one that I'm really looking forward to. That's why I've just switched my attention to that, because I will ride ZRL, but it's not. I'm not going to be at my peak. So in terms of getting my focus and attention, it's it's just not going to have the same. So that's why I'm just focusing on Zwift Games, and that's going to be really interesting. I hope let's get ZRL done, and then hopefully that Zwift will start to really ramp up the excitement for everybody around that, because there's a lot going on as well. Because obviously we got the tour going on at the moment as well, and January is always a busy month anyway. But yeah, Zwift Games is my focus.
So within that side, and I guess before we get into ZRL, I've kind of been thinking a little bit ahead, like the Zwift Championships, they seem like I'm quite focused on that. It seems like it's going to be a lot of fun. It's involving the community. Where do you think, if you look to 24, 25, where does Grand Prix sit in this?
Yeah, that's a good question. I say that there's a lot going on, and just look at the riders who've ridden Echelon. I know I keep pulling up on that one, but all the top names are there. And I think we are going to see more paid events, and again, there was a question mark on whether having that as a paid event would really catch the attention, but it really has amongst those elite. I know Nathan. I think in the last broadcast you did last week, you also covered some of the other categories in there, but it's clearly got the attention of some of the elite riders. And there's some of those riders also going for Zwift Academy as well this time around, which I think has added another dimension. Zwift Grand Prix, I don't know what the viewing figures have been like, but again, my feeling is there's still a bit of a disconnect between the Grand Prix and the community, and I think the games will help. Will help to reduce that. So again, maybe that becomes the future from that point of view, because I really strongly believe you need that link between what the community race, and I know we've had some of the races this time round linking the community rides with that Zwift Grand Prix, but I think there needs to be that link continuously. I think there needs to be a deeper link between the two, and there needs to be that pathway. So if the Zwift games can do that, then that's great. I think that might be the way forward, but let's see how that goes in March. It is. So yeah, it'd be an interesting time.
Back to the idea of timing and the way that obviously there's been communication with Zwift Racing League, WTRL, the Zwift Games, I think, and the connection in some ways there, because the timing is January 23rd. I'm glad that they pushed it back a week. I did think that they were going to have this next round a week sooner, and I'm really glad that we have a little more time to get ready for the first race of the ZRL in January 23rd through February 27th. And then we've got this big break, though, to the finals on April 9th, 16th, and 23rd. Like, how do you, like, I think that we're
That's because of the Zwift championships, right?
Yeah. So it's interesting. Like, it's just going to be, and so it almost is like, I wonder if there's again, I'm coming back to this. There's a lot going on and everything's trying to find its space, but there's always something to do too. It's not like there isn't something, you know what I mean? So that's not a bad thing necessarily. If you've got participation, there's always something to do. It might not always be the same people, and you'll probably have a pretty good fall off on the finals, but the people who are going to participate in the finals are maybe just people who are finalists, and that's fine. I don't know. Like, I wonder how that's going to play out.
Yeah, I think you're right, though. The season's really still trying to define itself. I think if we look at what's happening with the UCI Worlds, they've moved them to October, and traditionally they've been I say traditionally, it's been a few years, but, it's been in March time. But, I think that's an interesting move. And for me, that, I think we could potentially, in terms of the Worlds, attract some more pro roads, which me and Chris debate this regular basis on whether that's a good thing or not, and I can sense some feelings around the room, but I still believe that if we get one of those road pros who do ride the cycling esports platforms compete and win, that will be good for the sport ultimately, I believe. What I don't want to happen, what I don't want to happen, don't get me wrong, what I don't want to happen is for someone who doesn't ride the platform to turn up and win it. That's a totally different kettle of fish. But if you got someone like Cav, for example, who we see around Watopia all the time, really focused on it because it's at a time of year where they can. March just isn't doable for those guys because you've got Strada Bianchi, all the classics are kicking in, but obviously October's a time. But just coming back to, the us mere mortals as well, that the season's still trying to define, because as Nathan said there, this is the final round of Zwift Racing League, yet we're in January when all the new starters are really kicking in, and those people who are reinvigorated got to do something in the new year. So it's an interesting one. I did feel it started too early this time as well, in my opinion. We were back because we started early mid-September. So we know, when we spoke to Martin on the podcast, we know that the numbers really stepped up for round 2 because people were still outside. The weather was still reasonable in September here. So I think it's still finding its place. And again, if we can still keep people on the platform racing for the Zwift Championship, Zwift Games in March, then I think, what, if we can redefine it and just push it back a little bit, that will also work well. But we're only a couple of years in anyway, so we're still learning, still defining. Whether we stick with 3-rounders ZRL or they morph into the same thing moving forward, who knows? But I think a slightly later start, and something for people who do start in January to get the teeth into, because also there's a lot of new starters who come in January who may not be ready for racing yet anyway. So maybe the Zwift Games becomes a starting point for them, because you don't start Zwift to just start racing. We know that Zwift is attracting a lot of those people who are not necessarily coming on to be competitive initially. They're just coming on to get fit and be healthier. So let's give them a little time in January to get into it, and then February, March is the time maybe where we can get these people starting to race, and Zwift Games, Zwift Championships as late as the RL might be a way to do that. So, because we all want more people on the platform. So
I'm really interested in your point, although I don't know how long our show is going to be, about having an IRL pro. I don't know. I'll think on that one for a bit, because I think you'd have to open up the checkbook a bit to entice someone from the road to come on and race esport. I think when I think pros, I get the feeder and I get talent identification. I think that's a perfect use of the platform. But all I remember back to, and maybe I need to get this out of my head, is the image of who's the French guy for Quick Step, world champion. His name's totally gone out of my head. Help me out here. Alaphilippe. And the camera was on him, and he's just sitting there rolling his eyes and just mucking around. And I was just watching that thing that's going to be a big bridge to cross there.
Well, one more point on that though. I know we always get into the weeds when we have this discussion amongst the three of us, but look on the ladies' side. On our podcast recently, we had Ashley Moorman-Passio. One of the greatest female.
I'm just going to caveat, different for the women, because they don't
precisely that.
earn
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Different for the women.
Yeah.
Sorry. So I'll caveat that with on the men, it's going to take cha-ching a lot of money. On the women's side, I think this, it's not like they get paid huge amounts in real life racing. I mean, I doubt you'd get I don't know if you listened to the show where I was saying man, it'd be awesome to have Demi Vollering, raging up Epic Climb with Kristen Kulczynski and Gabby and Etienne, and all those races. I think it's much less, it's a shorter bridge to cross on the women's side, because Ashley loves it and she started that team, and you had her on and how passionate she is about it. I think the women's side's way more open to a pro rider coming on. I'm just not sure the men's side is quite there.
Yeah. Don't disagree.
Yeah, I want to be what? So what? Okay, I want to go into this one a little bit. What is it going to bring to the platform if you get single pro riders, right? Okay, one or two pro riders, they get involved. It's the personalities, you think? We were talking about this actually pre-show, is Vanderpool has a crazy following, right? Millions of people, just absolutely if Vanderpool's doing something, that's what cycling is. If Wout van Aert's doing something, that's what cycling is. Tom Pidcock's doing something, that's what Tade's doing something, that's what cycling is, to those individuals. So if you get those individuals, some names like that, that's going to elevate the sport, is what you're saying, Sai. Now, outside of those individuals, I don't know if a whole lot changes unless you get entire pro teams, unless you get the whole squads and multiple of them getting in, or maybe one squad, you know what I mean? But then you're then it's you're paying people to ride instead of, I don't know, what, there's a chicken or an egg there. There's a chicken or the egg there. You know what I mean? Because it brings the viewership, which then boom, which you can pay then, because you know what I mean? So it's which one do you do? And it's a big bet. It's a big bet if you bring them in to the sport through that, to be here we go. You know what I mean? Like, go ahead, Sai. You know what I'm saying though.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you're right. Obviously we've had, Victor Campenaerts, he's been on the platform. He raced the worlds and obviously didn't feature, and that guy's he's got one of the best engines in the world. If you got him on a draggy, climby course, he should be doing well. And we've seen it many, many times. But I also think cycling has changed, whereas, the disciplines have been able to win the classics, the grand tours, cyclocross, as we're seeing at the moment. They've always had their specialists. But what we're seeing now is, certain riders cross all of those boundaries, all of those disciplines. And I'm passionate about cycling esports, but we're still not getting enough eyes on the sport at that top level with the people who are watching cycling day in, day out. There's still got the skepticism around our sport, unfortunately. And I don't think we'll shift that. That mentality of, well, why can't these guys who smash these big watts on the roads, your Matthew Van Der Poels, your Wouts and so on, compete these guys? They must be doing something that's not legit. And until we cross that, until we get rid of that, I just don't think we'll be able to break that barrier within the main stream cycling fans. And I think to get the eyes on the sport that we need to really bring money into the sport from a sponsorship commercial point of view, I think we need to cross that boundary. We need to just get that out of the way. We just need to remove that, that any negativity that might still exist in that space. Because, the people around this table here, we can see what's going on in the sport in terms of the legitimization of it, and so on. But now and again, when we get this one bad player in the space, it's immediately in the press everywhere and the whole sports gets tarnished with it. So I think one of those individuals being up there on the podium, not saying taking the win, will I think help to shift that and also get some bigger eyes on it, and give some legitimacy to it as well for the non-cycling esports fans. And also, I think, that our top cycling esports riders, will enjoy and probably want to race against the world's best. I think I would. I want to be lining up against those guys in some way. So, I saw Tadej Pogacar had recently been on the cyclocross bike, for example, and I thought, Christ, if he gets in the cyclocross at the minute, with those other three, with Pidcock, and the other two, then that's just phenomenal. But that's just the way the sport is now. They can all do everything really well. So why not put ourselves in the same space? Whether it be gravel, cyclocross, road, track, cycling esports, and then see what happens.
Yeah. The bridge there. It's always a question in the back of my head is like, is a cycling esports fan at its core a cycling fan, and will that be the future of the space? Because I watched one of the recent Sunday race clubs, and you do have Michael Vink just absolutely smashing, but getting beat by Jason Osborne recently, and who's also in real life, obviously, and both of them, they didn't I wouldn't say they dominated the field. They were esports specific athletes who have come up mixing it up with them. And again, I think there's like this interesting crossover that takes place in that space that who's that person suddenly? And it elevates that person. But at the same time, I think in the esports space that there's people who don't know who Jason Osborne Jason Osborne's known for coming up out of rowing into in real life cycling through the esports space. So there's just that, but don't know who Michael Vink is without being introduced to it through esports. So I think there's also, yes, this is a smaller niche space. Yeah, cycling has a much broader base. Is there I always wonder if there's this undiscovered base for this sport that is developing itself, and but there is obviously, like you said, there's something that's sitting there ready to pull from. I just always wonder, what are we sacrificing in order to try and pull from it? And does that undermine, and does it try to do too much that then kills what this would be and would grow the best as? That, I guess, that sometimes is just sitting there in the back of my head, is like, if we morph too much and do too much to satisfy general cycling, it's been done a lot, it's been tried a lot, there's been many different marketing ways in order to, and at this point, I've said this before, if you're in cycling, you know what Zwift is. Like that part of that is done. Now, whether or not you grow it into a sport, like those are two different things, right? Marketing to people who are cyclists is a very different thing than like creating a sport within virtual cycling that people want to watch and be a part of in some sort of way. And so I'll leave it at that. Like that question, maybe if we want to answer that question a little bit here, then we'll jump into ZRL, but maybe that's a question for a future episode, or just to kind of be out there, is like, I do think that is a crux point of like that needs to be answered in some ways. And yes, 2 or 3 things can all be true at once, but do we need to make changes or be robust in building up this esports space in a way that is conducive to and entertains to and thinks a lot about the cycling fan and the cycling industry general? Or is there a whole other base that like Zwifters watch Zwift, esports is a thing, and it's its own thing that needs to grow in its grassroots ways? Both can be true at the same time, probably in a lot of ways, but is focusing on one or the other kind of a thing that has to happen in some way? So anyways, that's probably a much bigger topic to open up.
I think what's kind of interesting, I think what's quite interesting is before I got on Zwift, I watched the Tour de France, and that was it. Since being on Zwift, I watch everything. I'm watching all the cyclocross races. I watch all the classics now. I watch all the tours, everything. I'm like really into cycling and watching cycling now. So I think it can go, and I come from like, I don't even really watch triathlon anymore because I got so into like how cool cycling was. Now, part of that was because in lockdown, we were racing with the team that like Lauren Stevens was on. And so it was like, I felt like we were racing with real professional riders. And then I'd watch all the women's races because I'd be like, oh my gosh, I was racing with her. Oh, this was so cool. I used to race with her. And I think there's definitely the crossover from, if you take me as an example, I don't want to be too anecdotal, but from participating in Zwift and then watching cycling. Now, I guess, Sai, what you're saying is we kind of need to turn that tide as well. Like you watch cycling, now look at this cool esport you can also tune into. It's another little event there on the calendar that, I guess at the same time cyclocross is happening, you can watch some esport races as well.
I don't think it needs to be one or the other. That's my point. And I get Nathan's point there of trying to find that niche. We got this discussion of whether, should we be governed by a cycling organization? Should we be discovered by a gaming organization? That's another topic to dive into. But I like what you said there on it. And for me, that's the way I still see the sport. Zwift Academy, I saw Eric Min's post, post-Christmas about the Zwift Academy. And I would basically base it on the Gran Turismo, where basically just taking these drivers from a virtual world into the real world, and essentially that's what I think we continue to do. I still see a space where cycling esports introduces children and kids into bikes, or young people into cycling in some way in a safe environment. If that then helps to get more people on bikes outdoors and then ultimately into cycling, that's the way I see it going. And so I think it can work in both directions. I also think just about the platform and Zwift specifically, I don't think the time when we did see the pros coming on, which was right at that start of that lockdown period because they couldn't get outside. We've seen pros even on before that. I don't think the platform was right already at that time because most races, if we're really honest, were sit in and sprint. That's the way it was. And a lot of them were just getting absolutely smashed out the park. Where the platform is very different now. So I think racing is like it is more like racing now outside than it was because of the dynamics and the races and because how it's evolved. So I think we're moving closer to the time being right that people could cross both quite comfortably. You know, if we'd have continued down the same way of sit and sprint in a way, which it was at the start, you know, then I think it would have been more difficult. But I think a lot has changed since then, and I think we can cross both together. You know, and hopefully that, you know, Nathan's from a cycling background, mountain bike background. You know, I don't know what came first, the gaming or the mountain biking, but he crosses both. We know a lot of roadies, you know, those road pros also game, because that's, you know, that's what they've got to do in the day, in the downtime essentially. So I think we can cross both anyway, but you know, but it ultimately comes down to the dynamics of the racing. Is that enjoyable and engaging, whether you're a cyclist or a gamer? I still think we could do both now, given where we are with the dynamics of the game. You know, and I'm trying to bring it back to the ZRL, because as always, we've gone deep into the weeds and so on. But if I can link it to ZRL, you know, when I first saw these courses, these 6 courses, you know, I was a bit like, you know, and I said that about the last 2 rounds. We've had the same discussion, but you've got to but then you look at it in a bit more detail and you're like, actually, given the way racing is now, these could be really interesting courses, you know, and there are some standout routes in this next batch of 6 that we've got, which if you think about it and you look at the course, you're like, oh yeah, some real cool tactics could play out here. So I don't know if anyone wants to pick it off from there.
Shall we segue? Thanks for the segue, Si. We could have been going. On for hours and hours.
Definitely could have went on that one for sure.
So let's go race 1 then. We'll start race 1. We've got same format as the last 2 rounds. I think it's scratch points TTT, scratch points TTT. So we've got scratch race first, ocean lava cliffside loop, 1 loop of that, 19.2k, so super short. 100% aero power up, so that's all you're getting at whatever banners we have.
We got one.
1 banner. There we go, through the sprint. I personally love this course. I raced it ages ago. It was similar to that Underground series, but it was before that came out, and it was 2 teams up against each other, and it was our team versus, might have been 24 or one of those teams, and we did this course. It was so good because of that hard uphill, like up to sort of 8% on that little bit before the epic climb. What do you reckon about it, Si?
Yeah, it's the same as you. At first I was thinking, is this a bit short with 1 lap? But you know, the fact you've got 1 banner, and that banner is right at the start, because you come out the pens, cross the start finish banner, and it's an aero power up. So, you know, you're just going to hold on to that. I think if you can stick with that front group over that climb section. I mean, that climb section is a really interesting one, because it's like 900 meters, 1,000 meters, but that's enough to really separate it. It's going to be nuts through that section. We go out through the volcano, loop around the volcano, and then you've got that dirty suppressor climb up towards the Italian villas, and then you take that right section. Yeah, that's it, just round by. You take that right, then you've kind of got that false flat section, drag out, and then you start to head towards that Epicon bypass, and you've got that climb there. Now that is going to be absolutely nuts, because it's the pitchiest part of that climb anyway at the start. It doesn't flatten off, remember, until you sort of cross over that bridge, where then you've got the right turn down to the jungle epi, or you take the bypass. So that section is going to be absolutely crazy up there. And then the problem is, though, the rider's just going to be strung out. So then you've just got to find the group, and then it's a scratch race, not a points race. So essentially you've got to work your way back on the descents towards Ocean Boulevard if you want to be in the chance of winning the scratch race. So it could be really interesting, because if you could get a group of 5 or 6 plus riders at the front who might be the more climber types working together to try and stay away from more, you know, some of those sort of more powerful flatland riders, then it could make for a really interesting chase race for that final. Well, essentially when you get to the top, it's like halfway mark. So you've still got 8 or 9 kilometers to go at that point. Could make for a really interesting one. And then, you know, you've got that power up, which I just think could be really interesting because you could get some groups that need to use it earlier on, but then you're going to be messing up your sprint because sprinting without an aero against someone who's got an aero makes quite a difference. So there's some really interesting things that could play out, but it's going to be intense because it's 19k with like 1k of climbing. It's going to be nuts.
The arrow definitely extremely tactical, getting it right from the get-go. It gives you the entire 19 kilometers then to use it wherever you think is going to be absolutely best for you.
Do you know what I'm thinking? I'm looking at this and I'm like, you do those workouts where you do like a 1 minute threshold as if it's like up that climb bit, and then you settle in for basically that cliffside bit. You could almost like get the steep bit. You've got the draggy climb, which I always find a bit hard because it's about 2 to 3%. You take that left onto the rolls. You could use an aero kind of where that flattens off a little and just push for a breakaway. And then because of the dynamics now, you could hold that to the line, because by the time you get round to the end of that, you hit the descent and you're down into like the tunnels, you've only got like 4 kilometers to go. You could stick away with that. That's what I'll do.
Yeah, one of the best attack points in all of Watopia is the descent into off of Epic into Ocean Boulevard, because it's all high speed, and especially off of Epic like if you're coming down the front side of Epic, it's so steep, flattens out, and a lot of people are like resting right there and kind of finding position a little bit, and then it dives again, and then it completely flattens out for a long time with a right hand turn. And I think right there, I'll split my TT group right there if I go too hard in a time trial like that, because your roll through speed, there's even a little bump that you can carry speed over actually right before you hit the turn by Jarvis tree. And that right-hand turn into the Ocean Boulevard, and then if you can get enough of a gap to start working together, I've seen breakaways work right there on all different kinds of courses. The question is, how much rest are people going to get on the downhill after the cliffside? You know, that cliffside, whether or not everyone's looking at each other or things are ballistic still and people are trying to get back on terms, you know, it depends on how much split happens during the cliffside. Racers are going to be able to make the race so much on this course. I think up front, if things are calm up front, it's going to make it that much harder on the back end, because if everyone just chills out until you hit that climb, like it's just going to be all guns blazing all the way to the end of the race. I think if it's hard from the get-go, you're just going to have this long drawn out, nothing but attacks over and 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 ever. It's going to be a very difficult race otherwise, but it'll be one of these, like, I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. There's a very different race between 19K where it's constant attacks and like everyone saves something for 10K. And it's just like, especially with a climb like that, and it's just like holding on for dear life from 10K to go.
Yeah, it could be that, because I think if you want to keep that gap, the problem, you like say, you've got that descent, but obviously once you get onto that really long bridge and through the tunnel, it's like a false flat all the way, as a false flat descent in a way. So again, you know, some of those powerful riders working well could put it back. So even, you know, like in the past, you get up to one of those climbs and you'd ease off, you know, and you're like, get away with this, just sit in a bit. That cliffside bypass, I think, is going to be the toughest part, because you're not going to quite recover from the climb. People are going to just keep want to push you, because you're going to need a bigger gap than the climb alone is going to allow you. So I think that whole of that final 9K as it is from there is just going to be horrible. It's just everyone's going to have to work if you want to stay away.
A strong team pushes the pace with their strongest riders sitting in, and they attack the cliff. Then you that's the tactic, is attack after the climb through the cliff. And it's going to just obliterate things. That's the main tactic, in my opinion. But
I'm a bit nervous about this one because we're away at the beach on holiday. So I'm going to be on like a traveling setup, which is like the kicker snap and my cell phone. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be hard to see what's going on with like a tiny screen propped up on a table with no fan. But yeah, maybe I'll be glad it's only 19 kilometers. But yeah, I'm quite excited for that one. Okay, so race number 2, points. Island Hopper, which I don't think I have ever raced before. It's on Makuri. It was kind of in that new expansion that, the last expansion over there that they opened up. 36K, so almost double. Yeah, quite long. 2 laps and 4 times through one sprint, 2 times through boardwalk sprint, 2 times through Shisa reverse sprint. And you've got a bit of a lucky dip with your power-ups, the traditional power-ups, feather, draft, arrow.
Yeah. In a way, you kind of look at these two in the distance, the first 2 races, the distances and the way they're set up, and you'd almost think they should be flipped. So the second race equally is going to be tough. Island Hopper is a really tough course, actually, because you've got multiple sprints. It's like a figure of 8 with some additional bits. I think it's the only course on Eurocars that covers all the roads, if I remember rightly. There are sections of dirt, but obviously it doesn't really have a big impact. There's also a lot of dirt that isn't dirt in a way. And I think that if I remember right, there's some kind of definition there. If it throws up dust, it is dirt that can impact the rolling resistance. And if it doesn't, then it doesn't, essentially. But it's an interesting one because it's not flat either. It's like there's 260 meters of elevation. There's like 2 climbs on this one. You've got the Mech Island drag, around, if you look at that map, it's sort of the south side of it, which is really draggy, pitches up to about 5-6% there, and then they call it the Festival Island drag, which is not too far after that, which is another one which is just shy of a kilometer, again not massively steep, but 4-5-6%. It's just the fact that we've got so many sprints doesn't tell the full story, because I've seen races on this one, on those 2 draggy sections, really break up. It's really tough. So thankfully, it's not like you get in Yokio where you've got like sprint back after, back to back with just 1,000 meters in between. You get a little bit more recovery in between the sprints on this course. But it's still, you can see the sprints a little bit more spread out around the course, but you say you've got those 2 climbs. That climb there, and then the longer draggy section.
That one near the Mech Island here, this one stings, that little loop, because it punches on dirt. That one I've done the KISS 100 on this, and not on this specifically, but using this climb, and definitely that one really hurts. And then see, it's like they're in succession too. Like you hit that, there can be a little bit of a split through here. You take this right hand turn, and then you hit right into the next climb here. And this is a longer drawn out, like more of a 4% average or something, I think, like 4 or 5, like lower percentage average. But those are like the higher speed climbs where you can have attacks over the top, over the top, over the top. Whereas the other one's just a punch in your face. But it's like raise the heart rate up on that little loop one on the dirt. And then you can kind of come over the top to it if you want to try and break things apart in order to get some FALs. I think that'll be the motivations through there, is these last 2 FALs and a finish line on lap number 2. Whereas there's so many sprint points though here. Do you think this is going to turn into what, I experienced more on like Muckle Yin, or, where
I reckon
just kind of looks at each other going for those banners a little more?
I reckon the difference with this is if it's a 1 lap course like we had with Muckle Yin, and there's FTS and FAL, when it's a 1 lap course, FTS is king, because every banner is going to be FTS, right? That's getting the most points of your top 3. But because it's 2 laps, you're totally right, Nathan. The first lap is going to be so quick through all those sprints to make sure that you mop up all those FTS straight away when you're fresh and you've got a big pack. And then lap 2, you're just going to want to break away, get all your FALs then. So, I think this could be one of those, we did it, it could be one of those ones where you split the team a little bit. You could have maybe like, say, 2 riders who you say from lap 2, your whole job is to break away. And then we will try and have a group with the main pack and will still try and get some FTS through the way with the main pack, but your whole job is get away and get the finish line and the FAL. Because there's nothing more sort of devastating when you're sitting in the pack getting some FTS and then you see like 3 riders up the road who literally don't have to sprint and just roll through and keep getting first across line with like no effort.
Now I have a question about having a closer. Like in those situations, I feel like with the new pack dynamics in these races where FAL and FTS with 2 laps, they have so much value across both of them. Like the pack now splits so much during sprints that you almost have to sprint to stay with the pack. And it's like, I'm almost giving as much as it would be to be at the front. Why don't I just go for this? But so sitting in now, you actually need to have a ruler. You have to have someone who closes gaps down for the pack if you're going to keep it together. But I've found in ZRL, it takes a very disciplined team and a lot of sacrifice, especially amongst the men, that not everybody's winning, man. Like, know your role. And if you don't, like, can you accept that role or not? Like, is that in existence? Because if you don't have a closer, it's going to separate. Everybody's going to have to do way more work than they would need to otherwise. And you don't got the legs for that second half to do all those attacks for those FALs. Any thoughts on that, Si?
Yeah, no, I think the racing has changed. The dynamics have changed it so much, and I think about the discussions that we have in our Discord at level that it's so different. That first season, I remember just, doing that very first season of ZRL, we used to like, right, let's just rotate around. So you're going to go for FAL or FTS, and then it's just going to ease back, and everyone could just recover. And that's literally what it was like. And if you had a race with multiple in there, you got someone really strong, they could do that. But it's really difficult to do that now because riders and teams are so much smarter. That Mokoyen course, I remember that just going through, you go through that first sprint banner and then you think, oh, it's going to ease back. It just doesn't. People just keep going and keep pushing. So you need somebody dedicated that, like I say, that's their job on certain courses. And I think you can't have this group of sprinters in a team or this one-dimensional rider who, your team is full of. You can't have 6 of the same riders anymore. Just look at my team again. We've got 2 guys who can really those engines. They haven't got that real top-end sprint, but that's what they're there for. They just keep themselves in contact and then come with the roll through to just close any gaps that need to be done. And that's the way the good teams are shaping up now. But every course and every route, there's something different to think about how you set up the course. And it used to be the case. Also, looking at the numbers in the teams, if we were lucky, we might start the season with 10 riders, but you could get away with having 6 back in the day and just utilize the same riders because of the course setups. Whereas we really genuinely have to rotate riders now, dependent on the strength and what's happening with the course. Like I say, even on these flat courses, I think last season again we were in Neokio, that you need those engines still just to do that, because otherwise you're not going to have the riders up there to get the FALs. But this will definitely be a race of 2 halves, as you've identified already with the FTS chasing, which is so vital in terms of team points if you want to top that table. And then I think we will start to see a much smaller group take out FAL halfway through that second lap and then contest the finish. Mm. So
the sprints are interesting too. I just want to mention that, like, they're not simple. They're not simple sprints in the league. Like the first one, that one is on a flat section through, and like that one is kind of straightforward. But that sprint up and over the top of the climb, that the long drawn out climb. Which one is that one called? That's
the second one. That's like the Festival Harbor one, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean that's the boardwalk sprint as well. Is that one's kind of straightforward too, kind of. But the one over the top, that is, I think it's Tide Pool, perhaps, or Shisa. That one is just, that one is crazy because you come over the top of a climb, and I've seen so many different ways. Like the reason I say simple with the other ones is because kind of like the same thing always works. If you set it up right, you can kind of get it right.
Mhm.
If it isn't just a traditional sprint, whereas that climb on the north end, that the top of the map there with that sprint on it, I've seen it won many, many, many different ways, and the setup for it is so difficult to get right. Like, and it's kind of
Yeah.
like a strong man, strong woman sprint. Like you just like you kind of muscle it.
Yeah, I think I watched your broadcast. We did the sprint in the last. In fact, we didn't do it as a sprint, but we rolled through it after that climb section on the last round or the round before. I can't remember. So I remember watching your broadcast, and you and Dave were commentating on a ladies' race, and it was just all over the place. I think a couple of the Synergy girls had gone off the front and really strung it out. In fact, it definitely was a points race. So I remember they picked up FAL, but you're right. It's quite a technical sprint, that one, and there's a good opportunity. Again, you're just going to have to split it between which rider's going to pick up FL. You don't need to be in that front group. And in fact, that front couple of riders to be picking up FTS on that one, there can be quite a gap between some of those riders initially for that particular section. So again, just really interesting course for sure.
Yeah, do your homework on those. That's what the reason I mentioned is just do your homework on those sprints because they're not straightforward.
It looks like, yeah, you're right. It looks like on the power ups as well, whether it's just not updated yet, but in the last 2 rounds, we've had a power up per banner. But the way it looks at the moment is all banners will have all power ups on this one.
Really?
And you'll just have your 33% chance.
Oh.
There's no numbers attached to them. So it looks like at the moment, that is not showing on the WTRL site. Whether that changes, because I can see if I scroll down the screen that the numbers are still attached to some of the power-ups, but that might just be right into the last round.
Yeah,
so
that might have something
we'll
to do
see.
with that
We'll see.
instead.
So just keep an eye on that, but I'll have that updated by the time we get to the recon video. So
Good job, Si.
So RGV?
TTT, yeah. I don't know if we have to go into too much detail with the TTTs. It seems like we'll do the 2 at the same time. It seems like
I
a very no, it seems like a very don't go through them both at the same time.
You can skip through the first one because what I'll say, we could do them at the same time, but what I'll say is RGV we've done a bit, and it's a good strong TT course. It's only really the later sections of the course where you've got to be careful, where you've got the aqueduct climb, of course, and then you've got it's called the intestines bit that come down the side of the river there, back down into the marina, where you've just got to be careful you don't drop riders because it's a really tricky section.
It tests riders' ability to draft correctly, big time. I would say that you can completely blow your team apart through the intestines because it's so turny, and if anyone's struggling at that point or they don't know how to hold a wheel, that really, any cracks in the armor when it comes to drafting ability get exaggerated through the intestines big time. So that would be my main thing with RGV.
I find that area really hard in a TTT because it turns so much that I almost kind of just can't get bearings very well when I'm on the wheel of someone. And so even though I consider myself a pretty good drafter in game, I can't, I feel completely out of rhythm in that part. So yeah, I would say, and I think when we did this, it was a Grand Prix race I DS maybe last season or the one before, is you really want to try and negative split it, because if you push really hard that first, I found anyway, I found the first half, it's so flat. And then when you head out into that last half, it rolls a lot more. I think it's around the balloon sprint and stuff. And then you obviously get into the intestines bit where it really rolls. So it's the first half is almost dead flat. And then the second half rolls.
So
and
you can gain a lot more time, is what you're saying? If you have that extra boosters, nitro, back end, not on the front end?
Yeah, because we got our ass kicked by 2024 in that one because they negative split it and they were so strong in the back half, and they just pushed over all those little climbs, got all this momentum, and we were just struggling. So anyway, I don't know if that'll work for everyone, but I will definitely be putting that to my team, that the first half is a bit more within yourself, and then second half. It's very similar to that London course.
Jump in on that real quick. I think it's a great call because I think that You go hard. You go hard up front. You hold but you don't like blow the afterburners. But I think coming over the top of the Aqueduct KOM and then like being able to accelerate through that long downhill into that steady flat and then punch every single one of these little bumps, 100%. It's almost like you're coming down the backside of a ramp up roller coaster. Then you just go from there. It's like flip a switch from Aqueduct KOM, smash the Aqueduct KOM. It's not that long. If you reserve those afterburners from there on forward, that's almost like the second race that act like a new gun goes off. That's how I would race this one.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good call there, actually, now that I think about that. Sai, any thoughts there?
No, yeah, exactly right. I think, I look at it that you've got time you can lose if you don't ride that second half well. And like I say, that rolling section, it really starts to roll just after where you've got that left turn normally to go up the Petit Com. That's when it really starts to roll up and down. I say balloon sprint onwards, really. Then you always look at it. The differential that you can lose on that second half of the race is very different than what you can lose on the first half of the race, considering it's so flat the first half. So, no, we've done it plenty of times. It's just been really disciplined and, like I say, punching those rollers on that second half. But the reason why I mentioned,
I see it now.
You've now seen the course for the second TTT, right? Which this is where you've got to spend some time, because I looked through all 6 races and I was like,
gosh.
And then I saw the final one. I'm like, what? This is a TTT to finish? This is how we finished the season? It's like, thanks very much. Here's a slap in the face, guys.
I just, so does it finish with the volcano climb?
No, you finish in the flats in the desert.
Okay.
So because you've still got the Zwift KOM after the volcano climb.
Oh dear.
Wait, what?
So you go out the Fuego flats.
And you do the reverse KOM to go over to 10. Okay. Yeah. Oh man.
Oh, that's gonna suck.
Yeah.
We've done this before in WTRL TTTs, I think, on a Thursday. I remember doing this. This is I enjoyed this course, actually.
42 kilometers as well. That's like
take
a long time. Oh my God. So how do you even approach this? Because I'm looking at it
separating out the categories. Everyone's just going to do the same.
So what do you do here? Like, how many riders do you? You obviously want to come over the volcano with 4 riders? 5 riders? Would you just drop one there and?
I think inevitably you will drop one on the volcano, but I think even coming over the volcano, I think you need 5. I think it's very risky to come over there with 4 because, like you say, you've still got that reverse climb to go. And you're still going to, you then, even when you come off that, you've still got 6 kilometers, I guess, as you get down into downtown and then back into Fuego, on the flats there in the desert, that you still need some decent engines as well. So it's a really funny course, this, because there's long sections where you still need those real diesel engines. They won't necessarily go well on the 2 climbs, but you need them in those flat sections because you've got the long desert section. It's a really tricky one to get right. And
how many riders do you have to finish with for the TTT?
4.
And this one, is it 3? It is 4. Okay.
I think it's 4, but now you've put doubt in my mind, but I think it's 4 still.
Okay.
Yeah. It's 4. It's 4. It's the 4th rider across the line for sure. Wow.
This is going to take some thinking about. Yeah, this is I might have to get someone in to help me with the time trial planning for this one and try and give some tips on it on the recon, because it's a really tricky one.
I'll be messaging Aaron Bleakley for this one. I need an old plan.
I'm going to do the same.
Oh my gosh. If I look at it straight away, and with the riders I know I've got, I think we would probably be down to 4 after Volcano, and then we'd just have to go as best as we can after that. And the part that actually makes me really nervous is the long draggy climb after you've done the 2 KOMs that goes into the desert, you know, the one where you come over and go up that long bridge. I just find that, because there's only like 3 kilometers to go, just so incredibly hard.
It's a climb in and of itself. I always think about
Yeah.
that one. Entering, and I feel like almost all TTs, team time trials, have that now. Like, that's like a staple. If you're in Watopia, you're doing that little climb into Tempest Fusion. It feels like, because
Every
Tempest
time.
Fusion is used so often in team time trials because it's the flattest section, of course, out there. Like, I mean, when's the last time you did a time trial on Watopia that you didn't have that Tempest Fusion involved?
Oh my gosh, I know, right? And it's like I said, it's just too close to the end, because you look and you're like, oh, 3K, that's nothing. And then that climb, you're like, oh, I just want to die.
It puts you
This
way
is
over the
so
top, and
bad.
you're just hanging on, and then everybody's
Yeah.
at limits, and you're all, it turns it into this like drag race with your teammates, actually.
Yeah. Oh my god. Okay, well that's going to be fun. Okay, Innsbruck Ring, race
Classic.
4.
We're just this is just
Great.
classic.
It is real classic.
It is.
Scratch race.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the
Scratch race.
Twister, right? Because when we've done this before, we've done it a few times in ZRL's history. It's always been a points race, so it's always been about really kicking that climb, you know, easing back and recovering on that descent before you get to the sprint, and then full gas sprint. But very, very different when you're looking at it from a scratch race point of view. So obviously, yeah, you start in downtown Innsbruck. You've got quite a long flat section before you get to that leg snapper climb. You hit the leg snapper climb, which is normally full gas because you're chasing from points. This time it's going to be full gas because that's where you're going to create separation, if that's what you want, and you want to try and reduce that group down. And then it's going to be full gas over the top to keep that separation, because normally in a points race, people sit back, recover. You get, you know, if you're lucky enough, you can get back in, although it's quite a rapid descent there as well. So it's normally quite hard to get back on if you need to, and then you get that sprint. But it's just another one of those courses that even after that leg snapper, I think people are going to be pushing the pace on that descent through the sprint, and then a continuation, because you're going to need to if you want to keep that separation. So, you know, not massively long either. You know, with you know, people probably argue with me on that one, but you know, we've done more laps than that. I think we've done 5 laps around this before. So 3 laps of a scratch race. Don't think because we're not chasing points it isn't going to be full gas, because it absolutely will be. And I think did they not use this in Echelon recently as well? I saw.
Yeah, well, no, it was the after party, but I actually was just bringing up some footage because if you want to see how to attack on this course, because it was the after party was 3 laps, I think, down below, and then just and it was non-stop. I mean, this is a little bit of footage here. You see Cyrus off the front making attacks going into after coming off the leg snapper. Look at the attacks that are taking place immediately following the leg snapper. You can actually take that momentum. And again, similar to what I said in the downhill off of the cliffside, you know, it's momentum off of the rolling sections that build speed from the back of packs that you can attack off of. So like if we go forward here a little bit again, and then you have this climb though, right over the bridge, people trying to make, there's actually somebody up the road here, Tenselhoff trying to make a close here on that. Now hitting up on the leg snapper, Catanzaro off the front. You're going to see, I think, attacks following. Now look, coming down off of the back of this leg snapper, you can see this is a little ways forward. The attacks are jumping off of the leg snapper because you know people's heart rates are through the roof. You can take the momentum if you've got a little reservation there, and bam, just go right off over the top of that, and you've got a little bit of a gap, as you can see here, 2 seconds with Corrigan and Weiss there off the front, and some people trying to shut this down. And this isn't even with it all finishing on the that isn't even with it all finishing on the flats of the Innsbruck Ring. They still had the climb to come. That's not even the most amount of attacking you could see, and they still had splits going on.
So, question I have, because I don't know if I've done this course ever as a scratch race. I've always done it as points. And what I find is that everyone, that, and you showed a little bit of it there's that backside on the course where it kind of just drags up and up and up and up and up and up and up. And then you take the right and you head through the cobbles and then you hit the leg snapper. And when it's points racing, everyone chills out on that bit because they know the leg snapper's coming. And so that's where the break's going to be made. What do you think about attacks in that area where you just attack on the draggy climb leading into the cobbles and then just try and get away there? Because everyone's going to predict the leg snapper. And to be fair, the thing I find hard about the leg snapper is you can hit insane. It's basically for the woman like a 1 minute power effort. So like you could hit insane power, but then just be rolled a bit on the descent. So what do you think about like mixing it up a little?
Well,
Yeah,
I have opinions on that one for sure, but go ahead, Sai. Go ahead.
No, I think even with the older dynamics, we saw people trying to get away on that section before the leg snapper, and it's similar to what we just said there. The leg snapper, that you can ride that solo and not lose too much time. So I think there is an argument there that you could push the pace. It's not that first section where you turn right and take the road. Then once it starts to get into that sort of the back of town and you see the sections of cobbles, I think that's where I would be pushing on there. But I think there's a good shout for trying to get away before the snapper, because you can ride the snapper, like I say, solo and not lose too much time. But I think 2 or 3 riders together to get that continuation over the top is probably the way I would do it. But it's changed so much. The dynamics have changed so much. And I watched that ladies round Innsbruck. There's one of my teammates who's riding for Wahoo Local, Elise Gallegos, was in that race. So I watched the ladies of the echelon, and the ladies race was even more dynamic, through that section. It was absolutely crazy. But yeah, go on, Nathan. I know you've got some thoughts.
So this is one of my favorite courses for breakaways. And all the places that I tried to break away are not the leg snapper. Like at all. Because and I actually, leading into the leg snapper, if there isn't a gap or suffering happening prior to that long drag, unless I have like full gas afterburners over the top of that long drag, there's not enough time to the leg snapper to gain enough time that it would be beneficial over a large pack that has rested legs that will punch hard. That's my take. So that's my take for this section, this course, is that a clock starts for me from the descent on the leg snapper until that bridge. Actually, I am throwing what I can at the group through all of the little bumps that there are and all the little downhill little sections that gain extra momentum, and everywhere that I can find momentum from the pack to take full advantage of it as much as I can to get a gap and then start working with somebody to extend. And then what I use the bridge for, that long drag, is to extend the gap I've already developed or hold on to it. And so that's what I'm gauging, and that bridge for me is a gauge of the pack's willingness. Because on the leg snapper, everyone's just gonna go, ah! Like that's what happened. Like, and they're all gonna do the same, ah! You know what I mean? But on the bridge, you can see how willing they are to work together to bring you back and to match you. And if you can match them or do better than them, you will extend your gap out even more through that section. So like there's a lot of sections also on there where like there is so much free speed on this course. So much free speed. And if you do recons on here, you can see it like coming off the back end through that sprint, off the back end of the leg snapper and through that sprint, tons of free speed that you can extend out off the leg snapper. Then there's another descent with the right-hand turn toward the finish line. There's 2 little bumps through there that have momentum gains that you can just completely attack the group or take speed through like on a TTT and make sure that you're rolling through. And there's a few more actually over by the finish line. So one of my favorite courses, mainly because there's all these little top secret niches in there that you can find lots of advantage to run with. So Innsbruck, one of my favorite for sure. And I like it that it's a scratch race. It makes it so much more dynamic because not everybody's just looking at each other and like, well, whatever. It doesn't matter. Like, no, it matters. every tack matters. You better go for it, right? So
Question.
Yeah,
We have three power-ups here. So the feather, the ghost, and the arrow. I mean, strategic placement of these to try and win a scratch race. What would you be doing?
It's a good question. I've not thought about the use of those power ups, but I think as Nathan has just highlighted, there's probably opportunities for all of them at all places if you can find those little pockets of space. But yeah, I can't think of anything specific that tactical wise that I'd be looking to use. But I think the ghost could be an interesting one. Just try and get away in those sections. But the ghost is again, it's all about timing, just hitting that power up button at the right time as you come through the pack to maximize the time for it. If I got the aero, to be honest, other than looking at it for that finish line, because that's a really super long, flat, straight finish. It's all about timing on that one. The chances are someone probably likely to have a go early on that as well. There's always someone tempted.
almost always,
because
isn't it, Si?
Because you can see the banner. The banner's so tempting because you can see it from so far away. I can make it, and inevitably, 9 times out of 10 you don't. But we've
seen
really...
some upsets here, though. We have definitely seen some upsets. You can get away. It can work.
I'm not going to lie. This finish, very similar to a reverse kind of Richmond one, where you can also see the finish line for quite a long time on a flat bit. Reverse lead out for sure. Like, pick a teammate who you're going to sacrifice, get them to go early, draw all the other people out because they'll go too early, and then your sprinters come from behind and take it away. That would be my hot tip for the finish on this one. When you can see the
almost
sprint.
every time. It almost always works. Yeah. It's a good one. Yeah, I would save the feather.
I'm writing that down
for the Lakes.
Reverse leader.
So if I get a feather, I'm probably, I don't know about. I want a feather every time over the top of the leg snapper. I definitely, because it's gonna reserve your legs if you're not full on attacking. But the difference with a feather on that kind of a gradient is massive. Like just massive. And so like any attacks that do go, you don't have to cover as much. You got a little more extra in there, or you do cause a snap to happen. So feather is just a no brainer for me there. Like as far as where you're looking for that.
Keynote as well that the ghost a while back was extended to 15 seconds from 10. So there is more of a chance to actually use it to break away.
I'm so glad they did that. I couldn't stand the ghost before. Like, it didn't even, like, you hit it and you were like, you hit the ghost and it's like I appeared rather than disappeared. Like,
yeah. Yeah, I think all the changes they made to those power-ups were pretty effective at the time as well. But, I think that's part of the evolution and the development, I guess. What I will say is, it's worth going back to watching the Echelon, but also that's part of the FRR, the Flamme Rouge Racing today. That's today's stage, but it is the after party because obviously Richard Vale likes his climbing. But, there is a broadcast tonight as well. So it might be worth taking a look at that at the same time.
So everyone on that Flamme Rouge Racing will be so wasted by now. They're on like day 5. They'll be like going up
they're doing the after party. Oh man.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
They'll be going up the snapper at like
man.
40 RPM. Oh no. That's awesome.
Holy cow.
Okay. Final. It's not the final race of the series, but the final one we'll talk about because we talked about the TTT, which closes it out. But this is a points race, Makuri, Chasing the Sun. Now, when I went through all of these, this was the course I personally like the most out of all of them. All of them will be exciting for the different ways teams play it. It's up to the team, but I really, really like this course. So, talk us through this one.
Yeah, we've done it before. We did this in 2022. I think this is the final round of 2022 season, 21-22. Because I remember this recon was when we really first started talking about bike change, which because we do take in that Temple Con. But I'll start at the beginning. Yeah, you start in Neokyo. You've got the alley sprint, the railway sprint, which are back to back. They're the longest 2 sprints in Neokyo as well, 500 and 600 meters. Really hard technical sprints. Both of those are just horrible sprints from my point of view, because of that railway sprint you've got that little drag section, up to the railway
little
sprint,
up,
which makes
yeah.
it really tough. That little up, and then
and
you
it's
sort
kind of a weird
gradually
one.
move around to the right.
I see people get away because it's kind of downhill a little bit, right side, and then like it's a false flat sprint, downhill false flat, and so someone can kind of get over the top of it and like stay away, but at the same time the pack can come fly. I don't know. That one's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that one's kind of weird to how you function on that one?
Yeah, I remember watching one of the Grand Prix events where they took that sprint in. It was one of the knockout races, probably last season, I guess it would have been. And some of those sort of the big, powerful sprinters you'd expect were getting rolled on the line exactly for that reason, just getting the timing wrong on that sprint. So, but both of those sprints, I think, are really tricky just because they're so long. But the railway sprint, because of the way, like I say, falls flat, it's basically a falls flat all the way down. But because you've got that kicker up as well, it's another one of those where people are tempted to go early, but inevitably, you quite easily get rolled on the line on that one. So you've got those two early sprints back to back. You then, I think that's showing as if the roof on that graphic you've got there, the rooftop is a segment, but it's the rooftop reverse, so it's not a segment.
Oh.
So I don't know why it's got that red flag on that one, but maybe, I'm not quite entirely sure, but it's not a segment. So you got the reverse side of the rooftops KOM. Inevitably, that reduces numbers down typically. When we've done that climb, and then obviously you then start to work your way back to the countryside, and then country sprint, and then you're on to the big climb, which is the Temple KOM, which traditionally I say traditionally again, we've always spoke about bike change there and a bike swap because it often works quite well, a bike swap there. You can even hold the gravel bike all the way to the finish line coming back into town. But I just don't think now with the new the CDA values that or the rolling resistance values that the Temple Com is worth changing bikes now. It'd be interesting. I think some people probably will. I think so. Yeah. All round a Tron. But again, I think this is one where you need to consider different riders going for different segments, going for different bike choices, even because 3 sprints early on, you could if you just go full aero, that rooftop reverse is not pitchy enough where it's going to have a big impact. So you could ride a full aero setup, take maximum points FAL, probably FTS if you time it right for those 3 sprints, alley, railway, country, and then sit back and chill, save the beans over Temple. It doesn't matter if you get dropped at that point and go for the tower sprint, but then have riders dedicated to splitting it up on the Temple Com and going for both the FTS and FAL on that climb. So again, I think a lot of strategic thinking on this course.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, and it's only these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I kind of like it though because it's a very different points race compared to what we had in race number 2, where it was like boom, 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 over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas this is like a little more drawn out, but like, so you can set up for it and you can have more action between them if you wanted to, especially with like such a difference in the parts of the course with, a shorter, climb in Neokyo that isn't quite as hard on the legs necessarily, but then you got this crazy climb on the back end. So you can kind of focus on different parts of the races.
The thing that I, will be interested to see because of the new pack dynamics is a part of this course I would get a bit frustrated because you've got that reverse climb that's not a segment, but obviously it would split. But then you've got like 10 kilometers of downhill and flat to the next sprint. And I always found the groups came back together and it was just sort of like, oh, this is kind of, and it would just roll around at like 3 watts a kg. Like there wasn't a lot of motivation from my experience. But I think with pack dynamic changes now, you will get rewarded if you can stay away, and you will actually be able to stay away easier on that part. I guess like I look at this and I kind of think like the strategy that we did with Makuyin that worked really well, but this is almost like a bit reverse because the climb came way earlier in Makuyin, is to almost have a rouleur. That's the word, right? Sai, you're the you're the road cyclist, the rouleur who you can, I'm thinking like you get as many of your team over that first little non-segment climb, and then you just have a rouleur who can just hit the pace, hold like a high wattage all the way along the flat. You just tuck in behind them. They basically burn all of their matches doing that, and you are then in a position where you can go do the climb, try and get FTS. You'll already be up the front for FAL, and then you'll be like sitting pretty going into the finish as well. But you kind of need that rider to sacrifice that 10-kilometer stage, I think. For our team anyway, I kind of look at that.
I don't know whether people will be a little bit nervous about this Temple KOM. So I think it's worth a try in some races. And again, I don't think I've raced this course with the new dynamics. But I think you're right. The dynamics could play a role, but I still think there's a strong possibility that certainly at the top end, that most of the riders will stay together until you get to that Temple KOM, and the sprinters will just really focus on those 3 sprints. I just don't think there's enough in that reverse rooftop climb to break things up too much, because it's draggy, but it's not massively long and it's not massively steep at some point. And there are parts that are draftable because it's rooftops. You get the flat section, so it's like stepped, and you get the same in both directions. It's an interesting climb, but I don't think it's enough to break it up. And like I say, then you've got 10k of descent and rolling as you get into the countryside. For me, I think I'll be saying to my team, we'll just focus on keeping as many sprints as we can through that rooftop climb up the front. Let's not worry about trying to split it up or break away. We'll just get as many sprinters in there to get that country sprint. And then these 2 or 3 riders are going to really break it up on the Temple KOM and go for FAL, FTS. And then just get my sprinters to sit back totally on that climb and focus on that tower sprint that comes near the end and mopping up those there. And
there
then,
are
because
no
I think
power-ups, right? Like it says none.
Yeah, currently there's nothing showing on there, so
just making sure that's correct.
Yeah,
like
I'm seeing the same, and
cool.
the info I had was the same. Yeah, no, absolutely. So,
but I
again,
think as well,
go on.
Sorry, just thinking aloud again, with one strategy that we had that worked on a same section, different course, is we rolled attacks for that 10k until one rider got away. And then that rider got away and they were alone. So we had 5 still in the pack to get FTS, and we had one rider alone who then soloed till the end of the climb and managed to stay away and just kept getting FAL. And then it meant all the pressure was off us. We could just sit in the pack and leave it to everyone else to chase and burn all their matches so they couldn't sprint properly. So that's also a strategy you could try. We just did, I think it ended up being like 4 of us had to attack before one of it finally stuck.
The only thing I think about that is, if you think about that country sprint, when you go through the village after that country sprint, that's also very draggy. That's the thing with this climb. I know you've got that specific segment of the temple, but that section as you go through the harbour before, you go through the pens and you go through the harbour on those boardwalks, which is also quite climby. But I mean, basically, it's just drag consistently once you've done that country sprint. Again, there could be some early moves there. I just think it's with that section, it makes it a really long, draggy climb into then the true climb in a way. So I don't know. I think personally, I'd just be riding that first section with fear of what's going to come after that country sprint, to be honest. So I'm like, I'm just saving everything. But maybe that's just because of my current condition. But hopefully I've got some fitness by the time we get to this point. But I think it's, like I say, when you first look at the routes, you think, it's nothing great happening. But then you realize these last 2 races, including that TT, it could be really, really epic and interesting finish to the season.
I wanted to highlight quickly, I'm seeing over on Zwift Insider, he's done his homework a little bit here, it looks like. He's saying power-ups are going to be arch-specific and details are coming soon in his post. Now, I'm wondering if that is because of what it says at the bottom, if he contacted of the WTRL page, or if that's confirmed from Martin. Usually, Eric does his homework pretty well, so I'm gonna default that. I have a feeling that although it says none,
be allocated, I reckon.
I have a feeling we're gonna have power-ups allocated I wonder if that's what this is down here, or no?
Well, that's been there
That's been there.
since
Yeah,
day
so that's
one.
different. That's different then. So
Yeah,
no.
that's been there.
Okay.
That's been there from day one.
Oh,
How
yeah.
do you,
So yeah, I think they're just arch specific, but he
Yeah.
hasn't like said what they'll
It
be
just
yet.
hasn't said
And
which
because
ones are. Yeah.
the only thing I have noticed, I don't know if it's different, Sai, you could correct me. There's a bit in bold at the bottom that says like, we are working on a better way to display this information to competitors. So I don't know if there's something happening there, and that's why it's not there. So I don't know if that's new or
Interesting.
not. Someone tell me if
Huh.
I'm trying to find my email because Zwift sent me the full breakdown via an email like a month ago, but I can't find the email right now. Like I don't remember it saying anything about Arch specific, but it may have done because I generally can't remember it this time in the morning. But yeah, maybe it'll appear.
All right, I want to bring in a little controversy.
Oh, fun.
Well, no bike swap because of the changes to the like. What the heck do we have these bikes for? I don't even know what they're like. What am I gonna use? Like, do we really ride around on mountain bikes and gravel bikes because like we just want to go ride around on them on Zwift? Like, if they're not for racing, what are they for? Like, what the heck? You know?
Yeah. It's a really strange one for me because obviously we've added this new road which should open up the jungle a bit more as well, and there's some great new routes there, and I'm sure there's going to be some new rebel routes that appear utilizing that as well. I think Eric's already done some searching for these rebel routes, but I think that really opened up the opportunity to have more. Again, just think about that Flamme Rouge course, the individual TT had one of the new courses, and it was the one that started in the jungle, went all the way through the jungle along the coast. Can't remember what that course was now. It was only a couple of days ago.
Coast Crusher.
I just thought, yeah, that's it. That could be really cool in terms of a bike swap there, even for an individual team, because there's so much of it is dirt. So then to reduce the impact of dirt, I don't know. I'd be love to know what the rationale was behind that, because that was a part of the gamification that I really liked. I thought that made for some really interesting tactics.
Do you think that because there were going to be more people riding over there, and they're like, well, people don't really swap their bikes, they're just there to work out. They're thinking about the general user, so they're like, well, why would we slow them down? They're going to have a bad experience. Half of our users don't even know they can swap their bikes. You know what I mean? Like, they might like, is it that mentality, or I don't like
what?
Because
but this is like where I think that. Oh, I think the decision making was wrong. We talked about it a few podcasts ago. If it was because of the new roads and they wanted people to be able to ride them faster, just make the dirt in the jungle less dirty, but keep everywhere else the same. So when we've got a course like this, the bike swap still is a legitimate racing decision. Just change the jungle. I mean, I don't know why that didn't happen.
Or the other option, I think the thing about bike swaps that makes it complicated is when you've got a garage full of bikes. So what I would have preferred to have seen is keep the rolling resistance levels the same, but give me an option to have the team car with the bike on top ready to swap. So I haven't got to scroll, at least. You've sort of got, I would have liked to see that in the garage. You've got
make
your
it
garage
a game
with all
feature,
your bikes.
like it's a game feature, like that you can change your bike because you have different bikes, like that.
Exactly.
Like I mean...
you go into a course with 3 bikes, right? You've got your team car with the rack on the top, with your TT bike, your gravel bike or your cross bike, but those are the 2, and you still got to stop. You still have to do that bike swap aspect, but you don't have to scroll.
I really want to hear the rationale. I really want to know what it was now, because I'm trying as best as I can to understand, like, why did we change? Like, I just don't get it. Like, what is the point?
Chuck that in your Slack channel, Nathan. Go ask them what's going on. But I do want to shout out.
You're the one with the chat.
Sai, based on what you were saying, I do want to shout out to Mike Brooks, who came back to me last week. I put out the open question of how can we improve the garage? I'm not quite sure, but Sai, I think this is what you're meaning. So he said he's got an idea for the garage. You should have a main go-to garage and then a second storage locker. So you can switch things in and out of the storage locker versus your usable garage. And so that's like what you're saying, right? In your storage locker, you're like, oh, today would be good for a mountain bike and the Tron. Boop, those are in your like race kit setup for that day. I mean, that would be epic.
Oh, and then all you
Yeah.
need is like one menu added, right? It isn't like a major, like just add a locker, boom, put 2 bikes in. Like, I mean, I don't know how difficult that is, but a new menu. Sai, are you on it? You gonna do it? You got it for us, Sai?
What is, yeah, I'll get on the Slack channel that I'm not in and see what we can do. But no, I'm with you. I in my head I could just see like a team car, level racing team car parked in my virtual garage. That is right. That's the one. That's the bike I'm riding. And then visually I can see one other bike on top of the rack. So let's say just one other menu option. That can't be too difficult, right? I hope none of them are listening.
I don't like saying that. Yeah, like I don't know how difficult things are to do.
My email's gone quiet.
Well, that's gonna be our roundup here. It looks like that's 6 races, and anything else to cover when it comes to? I mean, the finals are gonna be April 9th, 16th, and 23rd. No details about that, but round 3, 23rd through the 20th. There's not a week off, is there, or something? I feel like no. Okay, just starting a week later, the 23rd. So.
Yeah, obviously there's just quite a big gap, isn't there, as we said there, between the end of round 3 and the finals, because there's so much going on in between. Because typically we roll straight into the finals. So yeah, it's quite a gap there. Hopefully people come back and are still engaged. But I think that's I think last time the finals were a WTRL thing, not necessarily a Zwift racing thing. So we'll see how that plays out this time. But yeah, no doubt there'll be something interesting. Hopefully we get to see a new course in the finals, because I was hoping we might get one of the new courses this time round. I know, Anna, we spoke about that in the group chat too. But yeah, it's not too disappointing, because I think there's some great courses in. But maybe sometimes these new courses need a bit of testing, and they've saved them for what's happening currently with the tour as well. So hopefully in the finals we'll get to experience that, and we can get one of these half jungle, half road, and they'll.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised. I'm a little surprised we don't have any of the new courses in there. Like I thought for sure we'd walk in here and be like, oh, what are the new courses? Da, 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 da. Like, what's going on with it? So that is interesting. That's not in there. Huh. I'm actually
considering Flamme Rouge has literally had 2 new courses already. The ITT was a new course, and the course I did, the Big Ring, is also a new course. So
perhaps this was decided very early, and we just had to stick with it. Who knows?
Yeah.
That was my thought as well, Nathan. Yeah.
Oh. Hey, you wanna give us your opinion about this cool kit, Sai? What do you think? What do you think of that kit?
The fashion pick.
Yeah, come on. What do you got? 1 out of 10. 1 through 10 here.
Ooh.
Yeah, you don't like it that much. Here, I'll give you some more. I'll give you a higher res. I think I'm giving you a low res on this right now. That should look a little.
I was just thinking, I can't see it too clearly. That looks a little better, but
right,
yeah.
Obviously, I'm going to give you straight 4K. Hopefully, we don't break the internet. right now.
There we go.
You might break it my side, but yeah, I don't know. It's not for me. So I don't know a lot about this kit. This is literally the first time I've seen this kit. Is this one of the unlocks of the new levels then?
Yeah, which one is this?
Oh, it is a later level. I don't know which one, but I saw it out riding, and out of all the Alp de Zwift kits, I thought this was the best one, the ice one, because there's 3 different ones.
What level is this?
I like the picture. I like the picture of the front, but then when it's as it looks on the back of the jersey, yeah, it's not my favourite, but it's it's got its feel. Feels quite wintry and festive from that point of view. But
that's what I
think
thought.
yeah, I guess we're in that. It feels like I'm in the middle of winter, sat in this studio right now. But no, it for me, I'm going to say a 5. I'm sorry.
Whoa!
Jeez,
but I like those shoes. That's the first time I've seen those Adidas cycling shoes. I don't think I've seen those.
Gabby has everything. I'm not kidding you. She is a hunter. When it comes to like kit in game, she hunts it all. Like, I can't believe her garage is crazy.
Those shoes are great, by the way. I got them ages. I actually was going to buy them in real life because I thought they looked so cool. But when I looked at the reviews of the in real life ones, they are definitely for your lower key Peloton styled spin sessions. Someone said they like completely ripped the tops off from trying to sprint in them. So
Seriously?
Yeah, I
gosh.
bought a pair and did exactly the same. I was guilty because I thought they looked great, and they did them in like this really bright orange, this pinky orange. I thought, yeah, I'm all over that. In the garage, I can wear that. And yeah, they didn't last too long. A little bit flexible as well, but yeah, they look good. They look good though.
I think I have
level 68, by the way. Level
Is that
68.
what it is? It's level
That's
68.
it. Yep. And there's the ice. There's 3 versions. There's a cozy kit, which is kind of your traditional, it looks like very Christmas jersey. Then there's an evergreen kit, which is green. And then there's the ice kit, which I really liked because I come from a land of no snow. So I think maybe I just really gravitate to the snowy stuff.
Is that
See, in game it looks better. In game, look.
It does. I was just going to make that same comment. I'm not sure about the combo that you're rocking there.
No, well, I just put it on,
jersey,
okay?
orange,
Like,
orange,
I
pink
just swapped.
socks, but-
I was wearing something else before. Give me a break. I swapped over real quickly. I had something else on. I don't know what it was even. I think it was the wolf kit. I had the wolf kit on, actually. That was
that
why.
is cool. Yeah.
We're not covering the wolf kit today, but I mean, that's what I did have on. See, that makes a little more sense. Now, I put these pink socks on no matter what, though. Like, these are just my go-to just because I want to. And then there was the New Year's Eve helmet. Okay, give me a break. We had
He's getting all defensive now.
Okay, I'm definitely getting defensive. Come on now.
You're low ratings there. You've gone from a jersey 5 to a 3.
There you go.
Hey,
there you
don't
go.
even try and fix that. Oh my god.
What I'll say that Alp de Zwift ice kit is better than that wolf kit. So I'll leave on that point.
No way! Oh my gosh!
Wow, the
controversy. That is a serious.
Mic drop. I'm out.
Oh man, you don't like the wolf kit? Really?
It just reminds me of my nan's sweater back in 1986 with the wolf on the front. But that's just me.
Yeah, you're just traumatized. You're just traumatized.
It's just too early for me. It's blurry-eyed.
Oh my gosh, you're getting a few like what's in the chat side. So I
can't wait to read the chat back.
It's good. It's good. Well, what are you doing for rating, Anna, on the ice kit?
Oh, I'd give it like a 7.5.
Yeah. I'll give it. I'll go like 6.8. 6. Yeah.
Since when are we going not 0.5 increments?
Because I have to. I because it's judged against everything else we've ever judged. I've literally photographically sealed all of our judgments of Zwift kits into my mind. So well, Sai, why don't we close it out? If you got time, let's just close it out with you as well. Sai, what are you up to for the next week in Zwift stuff? Or what's coming up? What's coming up next for you? Not just the next week, but overall.
Yeah, I'd say big focus for me. I'm just back into base. Just trying to build up some base training, trying to avoid Alex Coe at all costs because no doubt he'll be giving me some grief and just avoiding those Training Peaks comments. But so short term FTP test today, Flamme Rouge tonight, commentary wise, and then over the weekend I can't wait to watch US Nationals, to be quite honest. That's the big thing. I'm actually more excited about watching some of the racing that's going on. The Echelon's been epic. And obviously you got the US Nationals, which as a Brit, I wouldn't normally follow so closely, but that watching those riders in Echelon have made it really super interesting. So that's been really good. I'm looking forward to seeing that. And then we got plenty going on with the podcast and stuff as well. But for me, it's just trying to get the fitness back ready for the games, and just trying to get some fitness back. Because again, I raced outdoors last season, and I do want to try and get some Masters racing in. Maybe go for the Masters Nationals for mid 40-year-olds this year as well, outside. But maybe just crit. And every year I say I'm going to do some cross, but I failed again this year. So. Maybe
have you ever raced a cross race ever?
Not since I was 17, 18 as
But
a
you
kid.
have
and
race
then-
crossed. You have race crossed.
Is it?
Okay.
No, like, yeah, like 20 plus years ago.
there's a big difference between someone who has experienced one cross race and someone who has not. Okay, like because it's like going to the circus, like or going to something that you're just like you get thrown into something that makes no sense to anything unless you've done it before, and then all of a sudden I'm like riding a bike, but I'm running and I'm jumping and I'm riding a bike and I'm running and I'm jumping. And now that there's rocks, there's sand, there's who knows, like it's mayhem, right? So like when somebody says, "Oh yeah, I want to race cross," I'm like, "Well, have you ever done it before? Do you know what's happening? Do you really know what is about to
I'll
happen?"
watch cross. I'll watch it. There's no way I'm racing that. I watched my husband do one, and I was like, "You just rode down something that was like looked vertical to me." I'm like, there is no way I'm ever doing cross. Like recipe for disaster for me.
Oh man. So Anna, what are you up to?
Oh, still training pretty hard. It's like 7 weeks until the 70.3, which is in March. So I've got a 20K run to do tomorrow. So I don't know if I'll do it treadmill or outside. I haven't made that decision yet. And then Sunday I've got 5x5 minute VO2s. So yeah, I always like really, I've worked so much on my punch lately that I really dread now, even though when I was racing triathlons, it was all I did is the long effort stuff. Like, and I've seen next week, I've got like 3x13 minutes. And I'm like, oh, 13 minutes. That's so long. Like, just give me 1 minute, you know? So yeah, I need to get my head back in the sort of triathlon game with those. Yeah. And that's probably, I think that's about it. Yeah.
Right on. For me, I'm just getting well. That's what I'm focusing on. I'm just trying to get well. No, I am actually concerned about Grand Prix a little bit because like I haven't been able to train much over the last month, that feels like. And so I'm like, what is this going to be like? Like I come into the season so primed and ready to go. And I think I don't know if my body or I don't know. I don't think I'm overdoing it. I think I just hit a spell of bad luck. Here. A couple of places I could have taken more care in how I was training, not the overtraining side of things, but I think how I was training as far as like not getting back into the weight room after kind of like 2 seasons of cycling. That's like not okay. You're etc. So there's all these different reasons, but
you're not coming back into the best course either, are you? Because isn't the next one
no,
London?
that's the thing. And like I really wanted to be prepped for this one. That was one of my favorites to like look forward to because I'm a punchier rider. I've got a good kick, and that's where I can hang on is those shorter punches. That's where I can make a move in those even sometimes. And so I was like, all right, and if it's longer, that's also like I've got a lot of years of cycling and like I've been putting in some pretty serious pace, and so I'm a little like, oh man. So we'll see how it goes. If I've still got something in that's hidden in all the training I had done leading into the season, but we'll see. I'm not too much pressure on it. Maybe I'll refocus like you, Sai, and look at the Zwift games. You know, that'll be a thing probably. So, that's gonna be it for us for episode number 77. Sai, I really want to say thank you so much for jumping in with us, and I'm definitely gonna be checking out the FRR tonight. I'll be interested to see how things go for the broadcast and what's happening with all of that. I'm excited to see. Like, I'm really excited to see how that tour like presentation goes. I'm really that's going to be really interesting. So I do want to give everybody a quick little reminder for everything ZCL. Head on over to Zwift Community Live. Gabby actually threw this together. If you like that headband, we do have some Zwift Community Live kit that you can go grab. So it comes with a towel and a headband if you do get a very specific kit with the pain cave. So go ahead and make sure to check those out. And then obviously head on over there for more information when it comes to all the things that we are broadcasting. We do have the Flat as Fast as well as the Esports National Championships that are taking place. And you can submit your non-player character stories as well as your fashion picks as well over at the website. Just head over to zwiftcommunitylive.com/podcast for that. There's all the promo stuff out of the way, and that's episode number 77 for us. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We will see you next week for episode number 78 from myself, Anna, and this week, Cy Bradley. Right on.